I sat down in Girona and chatted with World Tour bike fitter Daryl Fitzgerald, and we talked about the mistakes that amateurs make when setting up their bikes. Because most amateurs think they have nailed their bike setup, but there's one mistake almost everyone makes, and it could be the reason you're developing niggling back or knee pain. Welcome to the podcast, Daryl Fitzgerald. I'm here in Science to Sport with Daryl Fitzgerald, one of the best bike fitters in the game. You've bike fitted some insane Olympians, World Tour riders every day, Joes and Janes. So kind of what I want to do today in this cool backdrop, it's just pick your brain a little bit and figure out what's the common mistakes that amateurs like me are making with our bike fit. And hopefully you can give us a bit of insight into that.
Yeah, I think, thanks for having me. It was a bit of a surprise. John was like, you're doing a podcast with Roadman? I was like, when? He's like, on Monday. Thanks for the heads
And it's a cool setting here, so thanks for hosting us. Anyone's coming to Girona, they need to come and check out this place. What have we got? Whose jersey is that in the background?
That's Tadej. We've got Roglic, Greg. I think that's Lorenzo Finn's World Championship jersey. Yeah. Matt Beers. Yeah, so
it's insane what you guys have built here. It's absolutely brilliant. You've seen a lot of bike fits. Yep. Would you even stick a number on how many bike fits you've seen? It's in the thousands?
Yeah, I think this year, I measured, we did a rough calculation from October last year to May, June, when everyone went on summer break. It was close to 750 fits.
Wow, okay. So I'm going to miss something on this, but let me bro science the mistakes that if I look at an amateur straight away, a couple of things jump out at me. The first one's always saddle height. What's the biggest mistake amateurs are making around saddle height?
Normally too high. Everyone gets told the higher the saddle, the more power you produce and the more aero you can get on the drop. But biggest mistake they don't take into consideration: hamstring flexibility, lower lumbar flexibility. Is their body enabled to hold that position? If not, they're going to be sliding forward on the saddle, rotating pelvis, and
that's when you get that hip rock. Is that the rotating pelvis?
That's when you get the hip rock, and then also you look like a prawn on the back because you can't reach the handlebars anymore. So the only way to do it is slide all the way forward on the front of the saddle. So yeah, saddle height is probably the number one mistake that we do see. And then it's slam the stem to be aero.
Do you remember the old test? I can't remember what book I read this in. It might have been like a Joe Friel training Bible or something back in the day, where they used to say, clip out of the pedal, put your heel on the pedal.
Yeah.
And you should be at full extension when your heel is in the pedal.
Correct.
How bad of advice is that?
Yeah, so that's, if your saddle drops for some reason and you don't have a tape measure, that'll get you pretty accurate to where you could be. But then the question is, what happens if you have a leg length discrepancy of 5 to 10 mil, which I've seen quite often. So your saddle's either going to be too high on the short side or very too low on the other side.
But is everyone sensitive to this? I've been riding, probably started racing in 2010. I think I had my Cat 1 license mid 2010 for the first time. So I've been probably riding the bike 10 to 15 hours a week with a few years interspersed with higher mileage than it's full time. I've never had a bike fit. I'll just even coming over here now, I have the bike in the bag and I'll take it out tomorrow and I'll just be like, looks kind of right. And, I'll go a couple of K down the road and be like, it feels a little bit too high, and I'll take the Allen key out and tweak it. It's definitely a different saddle height every time I travel. 100%. But it doesn't seem to annoy me. I've never had an injury, touch wood.
Yeah. So it is quite a sensitive area where some people are very sensitive to change and others not. We've had some athletes in here change literally 2 millimeters and they absolutely hate that saddle change. Take it down 1, tell me it's the best bike fit they've ever had.
Is it flexibility that determines that?
Flexibility does determine, it does help, but also the experience from the person, when they go riding. Are they someone that used to stop often and change 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, 1 millimeter? It's never big changes. It's either 1 or 2 millimeters here or there. And it's the same on the cleats as well. They're changing that. That could change your saddle height ever so slightly.
Is adaptability, is that a term, or do I just create?
No, 100%. So the human body is an amazing thing. It can adapt to a position, and you may not get injured, but when you break it down to a more scientific side of things, is how efficient or how economic has the body become now. Yes, if you're too high and you posterior rotate, your glutes aren't working as well as they could be. You get that more muscle recruitment, lactate accumulation will drop, your breathing efficiency will go up. So overall, you become way more economical on the bike.
Okay, so we're looking at different thresholds. Like you have a threshold, the lowest one to clear is, okay, I have a bike fit now that I'm not going to get injured on because I seem to be somewhat adaptable. But I'm not clearing the second threshold of actually maximizing my, I could be leaving 10, 15, 20 watts on the table, but just by being totally ignorant of bike fit.
100%. I had an Australian client last week. He did, they got this 20K time trial loop that they do every Tuesday or every second Tuesday. He sent me a video. I said, your saddle's a touch too high. He literally dropped it by, I think it was 7 millimeters. The same loop for 3 watts difference, he went a minute quicker.
Unbelievable. But consolation for me is I was at least 100 watts away from getting to the World Tour, not 20 watts. So it's grand. I didn't miss out on here. The other one I see if I'm out on a club run, and you're kind of just, everyone does this test, whether you're World Tour or you just bought a bike. You ride past the shop window and everyone's checking themselves out the shop window and see how good they look. Yeah. But when I'm on the club run, I almost become the shop window. I'm looking at everyone's bike fit and going, what's he doing? What's he up to? Did he do it himself or did he get a pro bike fit? Reach is another one I see. Yeah. I rarely see someone that their reach looks nice. The old test, again, it's probably the same place I read the saddle height one, that I used to think was the handlebar. Maybe this is less appropriate now. We've moved from cylindrical handlebars to aero ones. But the handlebar, when it was round, used to obscure the hub when you were in the hoods.
Correct.
That was an old test then. What's the thinking on this now? And what proportion of people are you seeing long versus short?
Again, it boils down to flexibility and how well someone can rotate a pelvis anteriorly where we want it to go. But then you get someone that's hypermobile and over-rotates too much. You can make them aggressive, but then they have a lot of pressure on the pelvic floor, on the pubic area. And so then that's a different situation altogether. Then you need to kind of give them strength work and train them to be in a more posterior rotation so they're not putting all that pressure on the front of the saddle.
Is that one of the main causes of saddle sores?
I'd say yes. If the reach is too far, a lot of people slide to the front of the saddle, and then they're sitting pretty much on that and not on the saddle at all. So there's a lot of rocking and rolling in between. So it's not always necessarily a pressure point that causes a saddle sore. It could be rubbing, and that rubbing breaks the skin, and that skin can just get irritated, and people start moving around in different positions.
We were talking about this off air. My partner Sarah, who co-hosts the podcast with me, she trained last year for Badlands. And, the mileage is obviously going up when you're going towards an ultra. But she spoke about it on the podcast, and she got so many emails and messages from girls at all levels going, oh my God, the exact same thing's happening to me. Horrific saddle sores to the point, I think she, multiple courses of antibiotics, back to the doctor quite a few times with it. Doctors don't fully understand cycling either. So it's a difficult conversation to have. Like they're not telling you to get one saddle versus another. They don't know what pressure mapping is. It's
100%, and there isn't one saddle that works for everybody. It's as many as fits as we have done. One saddle would be absolutely amazing for one person. The next person walks through the door and it is absolutely terrible. So you can't pinpoint and say that's the best saddle to get.
That's a hard answer, isn't it?
It's a little bit of trial and error. Sometimes, but we do get athletes that come in with their saddles, get on and it's perfect. But then when you get into sort of teams and stuff, when they're sponsored by a saddle company, they don't have many options to play with, which I think gets quite tricky then as well.
So even just to journey back and recap these first couple, and talk about fixes for this, like fixes that someone could implement at home rather. Like I know the ultimate fix is get a bike fit, haul yourself over to Girona and get a bike fit. If you're unsure of saddle height, would you disregard that test? Would you move to AI software? Is there a quick fix at home?
Like AI software, does it really pick up the points when you're at bottom dead center or at top dead center that you've got the correct hip angle or knee angle? It is partly accurate. I wouldn't say it's 100%. But otherwise, you could use the heel method, but then also just play a little bit. Don't be scared, but don't go 5 or 10 millimeters at a time. Go 1 millimeter at a time. It may only sound a little bit, but you'll definitely feel the effects. And for me, try and do little things like when you're riding, feel if your glutes are working.
Yeah,
you definitely feel like when they activate and they're engaging properly, you'll without a doubt feel that glute working. Then okay, this feels pretty good. And then immediately you'll feel pressure reduced off your lower back, stuff like that. Because when you're posterior rotated, your back, 9 times out of 10, that's always my lower back sore.
The tricky thing with this is everyone wants a neatly wrapped solution. But what I'm kind of hearing from you is it's so interconnected. Yeah, it's like 100%. You move the saddle up, it has an effect somewhere else, like an externality down the chain. Have you seen this happen with the trends? British Cycling been pushing 165 cranks since London 2012. Poggy moves to 165 cranks and they're sold out. SRAM can't keep them on the shelves anymore.
Alejandro Valverde's been running 165 cranks pretty much his whole life.
Did he? and he finished
how
podium in about 40 monuments.
So yeah, it's weird. Like the crank story is that's a whole podcast just on its own. I think does it work for everyone? No. Does it work for some people? 100%. So it goes to the same thing as a saddle. It doesn't work for everybody.
And when we say work, what are we talking about? Are we talking about comfort? Are we talking about extra
comfort,
power?
Performance, everything? I've had 1 or 2 clients, like elite athletes back home in South Africa, go to shorter cranks and lose 20, 30 watts. Immediately I say, put your old cranks back, do the same session, straight back to normal.
And is it like a leg length issue?
The leg length does play a big role. Like if someone's really tall, long femurs, the shorter crank doesn't work too well. The shorter crank does work for stockier, shorter riders, definitely. But I try and tell people, if you have the option to test it before you just I have to have 165 cranks.
Test it for you're like me and you just stick an order in for your SRAM Red 165s.
Yeah, someone like yourself with really long legs, like I don't know if it would really work for you. It's something you'd have to try. And
just because they did move to 165 last year, but again, back to that saddle height thing. Like I remember coming back into the Irish setup on the track for Para to be a pilot on the tandem a few years ago, and the previous tandem pilot was like 2.5 inches taller than me, and I'd just jump on the bike and the stoker on the back would be like, "Did you change that saddle height?" I'd be like, "Nah." It's like that much out. I wouldn't even notice until like 3k into the pursuit.
Yeah, your quads are screaming at you.
I didn't notice anything really on the crank change that everyone was talking about when I went from 175 to 165. I changed my saddle height a little bit, but I didn't really notice much, if I'm totally honest, in either direction.
Even with the crank length, you don't always necessarily need to change the saddle height because you've gone shorter. Some people adapt really well and you don't maybe change 1 or 2 millimeters, but just because you've gone the 5 or 10 doesn't mean you have to change saddle height that whole 5 or 10.
Why is the theory flawed? Because back in the day it was almost like the Archimedes, give me a lever big enough and I'll move the world. It was this idea that if we have a longer lever, you have more torque. Correct. Where did that fall apart?
I think to be honest, I don't know where it fell apart. I think, you take a track sprinter, they all run short cranks to 155. So yes, you generate power a lot faster, you get to peak power a lot quicker, but to hold that power, you still have to create force through the pedals. So the only way to still create that force is probably go bigger chainring, because your RPM is going to increase from between 5 and 10 watts. So it's, if you're someone that already runs high cadence, you go short on cranks and then you're running an extra 5 to 10 RPM more. How much force and power can you still?
It's turned into a maths problem.
Yeah,
it's like I'm sure there is someone that's a data scientist listening will actually definitively have an answer. I did hear I'm not sure how true this is. I didn't hear it from any sort of credible source that Jonas, that they messed up. Remember TT? He got absolutely pasted in the Tour by Tadej. It was the first TT this year, I think. They messed up the crank length calculation. They went too big on the chainring and too short on the crank.
Yeah, something like that.
That's what I heard now.
But a guy that would be really good at this is probably Dan Bingham. From
Adam on the podcast. Like, interesting.
He's an engineer. That's his job. He'll be able to give you the best answer.
I had Dan on. I can't remember if I talked to him about it, but super interesting lad on a number of fronts. A few weeks ago, Angelo Poli of MetPro joined us on an episode. It was episode 1231, 5 tips to speed up your metabolism. And the response to that episode was absolutely huge. Some of the biggest response we've had to a podcast all year. A lot of you reached out with DMs and questions and feedback. So MetPro, on the back of this, has joined us as a show sponsor. If you missed that episode, I'll link it in the show notes down below. Now, if you're watching this, you already train smart. You've dialed in your workouts, your power numbers, maybe even your recovery protocols. You're tracking intervals. You're watching your training stress score, paying attention to your sleep. But here's the thing that most athletes still overlook, in my experience: their metabolism. And that's where MetPro comes in. MetPro is a performance coaching platform designed to help athletes optimize their metabolism for peak performance. Because no matter how good your training plan is, if your body isn't fueling, recovering, and adapting efficiently, you're leaving performance on the table. MetPro coaches analyze your unique metabolic profile, how your body processes fuel under stress, and it uses that data to build personalized nutrition and training strategy that evolves as your training load and goals change. For cyclists, that means fueling smarter on hard days and recovering between sessions, and more consistency across long training blocks. Right now, Roadman Cycling listeners can get a complimentary metabolic profiling assessment plus a one-on-one consultation with a MetPro coach. Just go to www.metpro.co/Roadman. That's metpro.co/RODMAN. I'm going to leave that link in the description down below. Cleat position is maybe after I go saddle height, reach. Cleat position is the next one I see people not just kind of bang them in the center and don't really give much fore and aft thought to it.
So I think going over the past couple of years, everyone's cleats all the way back because that's where you got the most stability on your foot. But for me and for us at Science to Sports here, we start in a neutral position between the first and fifth metatarsal, and then let the guys ride and say, where do you feel your strike point? Do you feel like you want the cleat going forward, back, heel in or heel out? Just because we say it's neutral and that's the way it should be, our feet are not in the pedals pushing. Yeah. So do they feel like maybe they're too much on their toe or it feels too far back? Then we adjust it to where they feel pretty comfortable.
Is numb feet just a function of cleat position?
Not necessarily. Some shoes, if shoes are too narrow for you, will definitely cause some numb feet. I don't know if you've ever experienced when on a hot day, going up the climb, your feet just go numb, you loosen the shoe and it feels great again. That's why you see all the new shoes, Nimble, Bond, Specialized.
Yeah, I've gone to Nimble this year.
All going super wide toe box. It's just helped the foot strike point be a lot better and you're not squashing the foot up.
Badlands this year, like I was out with the pedals going down to the sense. Honestly, like resting my feet on the shoe going down to the sense. They were that bad. I was like, I'd stop for like a Coke, walk into the shop. I'd have to take my shoes off walking into the shop. Like the pain was undescribable. And I'd never, obviously going and riding for 4 days with no sleep is gonna amplify a few issues.
Everything's gonna start deteriorating. It doesn't matter what bike fit.
We were doing this. Wes was actually a videographer behind the camera. Was with us documenting Badlands. But there was one point we're going up this climb, and I don't know if the GPX file was totally accurate. It looked like it was the top, and I was riding it with Sarah, and it was her big goal to get through it. So I was just kind of, there for motivational pep talks. But we got to the top of the climb, but it turned out it wasn't the top of the climb, and it was like a pseudo summit goes again. Just lost her mind. Just like gets the bike, throws it on the ground. F this event. F you. F cycling. But that's a factor of all those little things. It's the sore feet from may or may not be Cleat position.
Yeah, definitely.
The two things that really hit me for Badlands position wise, and anyone that's doing an ultra can probably speak about it, is the feet and the hands.
Yeah. Fingers.
Lachlan Morton was on the podcast last month, and he was saying just 2 of his fingers are just gone. He's just going to wrote them off. Like a mate that he lost back in the day, just won't feel them again. I
remember when I did Cape Epic, I think 3 years ago, it's like I'd never had bark foot issues, and then for like 2-3 weeks after, it's like my toes and fingers are also numb because I'd never done something like that. So it boils down to, I think, a number of things, and not one thing that identifies it. Having a good bark fit, having good coaching, and everything together helps you. But when you're doing something like Badlands and that, when you're getting that deep into the race, nothing really helps you. But by the time it just delays that pain or anything.
You're right. It amplifies everything. Like a jersey that I'd ridden in, probably 100 times before. Never had an issue with it. All of a sudden, 3 days in, the label is chafing you, and you're like, I've never noticed that label in my life.
No, 100%. So, obviously, having a good bark fit, good training, everything just delays it a little bit longer. But when you're doing what those ultra events, something's got to give. If you think about you holding handlebars, you're sitting on a saddle this big, and your feet are clipped.
What is it? The compression of the nerve in your hand? Is that what gives the numbness?
100%. You got 2 nerves or veins that run through here, and if you're constantly on that point there, that's why you see guys that do Badlands like Ulrich Bartholomew and them. They put the TT bars on 90 bars.
I seen that as it's rolling out. I was like, that's a good idea.
And then guys double wrap their bars. Obviously relax their foot as well. They don't run too aggressive. You don't want to be putting a lot of pressure or anything on the hand. So you kind of need to adapt your bark fit a little bit for something like that as well. Be a little bit more relaxed.
For anyone that hasn't done that stuff, the calculation is different. Like if you're a performance-driven athlete, maybe the calculation you're trying to make with aero bars is, okay, there's obviously an aero penalty to use in aero bars if you're not in the bars.
Yeah.
So the calculation they're maybe making is, okay, what percentage of the race do I need to be in the bars to have a net gain in using these bars? But it's actually not the way you should be thinking about it. It's a different hand position.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because the pain will be a limiter for you.
Yeah,
people scratch these races because their hands and feet get too bad.
100%.
Or their neck. We've seen one dude with like a broomstick duct taped holding his neck up.
Yeah, just that
shut down. Like
people clearly love their bikes more than I do. But that's why you even see some guys go away from mountain bike pedals and actually ride the road pedal.
Yeah,
because there's a bit more surface area just to disperse some of that pressure. So
look, have a wider pedal I've moved on the gravel this season, the Look Carbon Keo.
Okay,
and it's a wider mountain bike pedal, not quite road wide, but it's a little bit wider. I'm trying to think of the other parts of the bike fit that I've missed. Saddle fore and aft position and saddle tilt.
Saddle tilt's also quite a common one we see, especially if someone's got a very big drop or long reach. They normally tilt it quite a bit so that they not putting too much pressure on the pubic area. So then typically we like to lower the saddle, then lift the saddle up and get them more comfortable. Because as you rotate forward on the saddle, your ischial tuberosity obviously gets a little bit narrow. And if that saddle's pointing up, you've just got all that pressure on your pubic area. So your saddle tilt is probably one of the bigger common problem we do see.
Would you have that as a starting point as neutral, like spirit level on it?
Yes, we try and keep it neutral to start off with, especially if you see someone before we change anything on the bike, we do videos for before and after and the measurements. And sometimes if it's just literally the saddle's 2 degrees up too much, it causes them to almost push themselves back and rotate the pelvis just to keep pressure off the front of the saddle.
I know there's not objectively a best saddle because it's quite individual.
Yeah.
But you see the same patterns like there's not objectively a fastest time trial helmet, but if you put 100 people in all the different helmets, there's 2 or 3. Kask's aero helmet comes out quite fast. Pock's aero helmet comes out quite fast. Do you see the same patterns emerging with saddles?
Yeah, 100%. Like almost a new craze, I think, is a Wove saddle. And
this is the wider.
It's the wider one, full carbon one. And what we have seen of it in here that I've tested on people has actually been pretty good for everyone that we've seen. But I'm guaranteed for someone that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But there's so many saddles now to try and have all of them in stock to test. Is
it a shape or is it a pattern that makes the saddle? Because I'm using a small Slovenian company. I love them though, Berk Composites.
Okay.
And the saddle, it's like as hard as the iPad, but I find it extremely comfortable.
No, 100%. So, and that's where it's individualized to so many people. Some people like a bit of soft cushion, and that's where the 3D printed ones are coming in, like quite popular.
They look cool as well.
It's got to do with shape, size. Not everyone's pelvis or hips are the same, so saddle width super important. I see that a lot. A lot of people have the saddle too narrow, and then when they're sitting on the saddle's just inside the sit bones, and they're just having huge pressure points. You give them a 10 millimeter or 5 millimeter wider saddle, and it changes everything for them.
What's the myths around bike fitting that we wish you could just dispel? Is there any like industry-wide myths that people kind of fall into?
Aero's not always faster. That'll be the biggest myth, because if you can't hold the position, you're not going very fast.
That's a good. I do see that one a lot. The super aggressive positions.
Yeah.
One I see as well, and this is like hypocritical for me, someone's never had a bike fit, but our bodies change so much. Like I don't have the same flexibility now that I did when I was 25.
No, definitely not.
So, but you do see people that get a bike fit and then they think like getting their driving license, one and done. It's like,
yeah, I'm done.
But you're in the gym and you're 5 kilos heavier, or you're on Ozempic and you're 40 kilograms lighter. Like you're two different people.
Yeah, 100%. And as an athlete, or especially in amateurs, their volume increases, or they change their bike and they think, it's a road bike, I just get same saddle height. But seat tube angle change from an aero bike to a gravel bike to a relaxed to just a climbing bike. So if you just go measure the same saddle, it is going to probably be 3 to 5 millimeters different, just that alone. So, as humans, we change all the time. If you're doing 20 hours a week, get injured, and then you can't ride for 2-3 years, then you come back, you're not going to run the same position you did 2-3 years ago, or even 3 months ago.
What about discipline to discipline? Like I'm jumping almost based on the weather, living in Ireland, what bike I'm riding. So I know the mountain bike's a totally different thing, so maybe let's park that one. But road and gravel bike, I'm almost using interchangeably. Like if I look out the window and it's been sub-zero overnight and I know I have to get started at 8, I'm like, I'm better off having the gravel bike with the, the T80 Vittoria tires on, mud tires on it for a bit of grip.
So in terms of saddle height, you can set the gravel and road bike almost identical. Where it does change is the stack heights are quite different on the front end of the bike. Gravel's always going to be a little bit more relaxed compared to your aero road bike. So
should I look to get them the same?
No, I wouldn't. I'd keep the gravel bike a little bit more relaxed, because the handling characteristics are so different from the gravel to the road as well. The geometries are different in terms of wheelbase length. That is very different.
Handlebar width's normally a little bit wider.
Even the stem length can change your handling characteristics on a gravel bike. Too much of a long stem, you're going to be oversteering way too much. Almost feel like you're turning a double-decker bus.
What's a pain in the ass with the bike industry at the moment, and I know there's good aero reasons and aesthetic reasons for it, but the integrated stem handlebars. Like, for someone that wants to change their bike fit, it's like, you can't just go down to your local bike fitter with a basket full of stems now and try everything from 80 to 140. A new set of handlebars is like 900 quid.
Exactly. So it's not a cheap operation either. So that it even makes it difficult for us as bike fitters. Is like, guy comes in here and he needs a longer stem. What do we tell him? It's like, mate, you got to go and spend like 500 euros to go and buy a new handlebar.
And so what's the fix around that? Can you play with
So we obviously do, yes and no. Sometimes you play with fore and aft and it doesn't do anything. They just need that longer reach.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can't work around it. We do have equipment now where we can show them, okay, here's a 10 millimeters or 20 millimeters longer, and they see instantly it's better. So yeah, it's such a tough one.
What's the couple of aero tweaks you would make to somebody coming in, like low hanging fruit for somebody that's looking to get more aero?
Come up on the handlebars
to a position you can hold.
To a position that can hold. Not only that is when you do come up, and everyone now wants to ride in this aero tuck position because they can't put their elbows on the bars anymore. It just enables them to rotate a little bit and actually sit in that position and hold it. Where if it's too far down, they're sliding forward, their head's way below their hips, and they 2-3 minutes and then they're sitting up again. So
I also notice when people go super low on the front, the head goes down, but it pops the back up, and it's like without looking at any airflow charts on it, it just looks like the air is coming and hitting.
It's catching the back and slowing you down. So I mean, you see the way TTs have gone, how everyone's come up on the front so they can keep that super straight back, and you're not like that, shoulders not open, everything's closed off as much as you can, just to close that surface area up in the front.
Would you jump on the trainer and just film that on your phone?
Yeah.
We used to do a poor ass student and trying to figure out how to go fast in time trials. We'd go out with as many time trial helmets as we could get our hands on. We'd go to the top of a hill, get into the position, take a picture of the position, and just small little push and hold the position, and then mark it with chalk. Down the bottom, come back up, new helmet, mark it with chalk. And we'd go, the POC helmet's a little bit faster.
So obviously things have become a lot more accessible for bike fitters, trainers, whatever. You can buy aero sensor stuff now. We've actually purchased, so we're going to start doing some aero testing.
Nice. What are you using?
We're using aero sensor from the UK. So yeah, I mean, there's so much in terms of power meters. You got for Vero, there's SRM, there's ways of testing how aero you can get, and test different products. Everything's so accessible now. It's not just for the elite anymore. And funny enough, you get your age group and stuff that wants that same treatment as going to the track.
But they do, because the thing is, like, and I'm getting into that demographic now where I would have never understood it, but it's like, my goals are just as important to me as Tade's goals are to him.
Exactly.
I don't care if he wins the tour or not. I care if I win that local Wednesday night.
You put a helmet on, it's a race. So guys want to improve, whether it's from a coaching, nutrition, bike fit, aero testing, equipment. Everyone wants to improve.
Since getting back into training, the biggest thing that's hit me isn't fitness, it's fueling. I used to finish rides totally wrecked. I'd come through the door, collapse on the couch, scroll through Instagram and call it recovery. But now that I'm actually fueling properly, and that's anywhere from 80 to 120 grams of carbs an hour, depending on the session, it's a completely different story. I'm coming home from training feeling fresh, and my power data throughout the ride supports this. I can actually function when I get off the bike. It's honestly blown me away how big a difference that proper fueling makes. When I started fueling right, I realised just how good I could actually feel on the bike. A daily staple in my training now, it's for endurance, because I know exactly what I'm putting into my body. Every product is designed for performance. It's tested in real racing, and it's used by the very best, from Olympians to Tour de France riders. It's the same science, just without the luxury brand markup. Seriously, jump over to their site and check out the prices. You'll be absolutely blown away. It's real fuel, unbeatable price, great taste, no gut issues. Like, that's a winning combo for me. For endurance, built on science, proven in sweat. Check them out at forendurance.com and start fueling smarter. I'm going to put the link in the description down below. Because I think ultimately a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people are trying to answer the question, how good can I be, full stop. Now I've kind of had to slightly reframe the question, and I'm saying, you know, we're building this little community of people over on a school community we're building called Not Done Yet. And this is more for people that have like built a career or a family, and they want to see how good I can be, but within a container. And that container is normally a time-related container. I've got, how good can I be with 10 hours a week? How good can I be with 12 hours a week? It's not how good can I be full stop, because that's kind of a fast path to divorce and bankruptcy.
100%.
But it's an interesting new challenge, but it's massively important to people.
Yeah, no, 100%. They may have not raced or been able to race when they were younger, like some of us that were fortunate to do some racing. They found the hobby and they absolutely love it. It's also healthy for them. So, yeah, not maybe sometimes a bank account.
To a point.
It's up to a point. But like they find a passion for it. They find a good community. It's a good social thing. And normally the kids end up following. So it ends up being a whole family affair, and the passion comes with it. So they want the best that they can get.
Like there's something cool when you find your passion in life, whether it's sport or it's academia or whatever it is, you find your passion. But then there's real magic happens when you find your passion and you find a tribe of other people who are also into the same passion. Those two hit heads and it's like time disappears. You go and you meet the lads for a 2-hour group ride and it ends up in 6.
100%.
Daryl, really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah,
on Bike Fit. I think we're going to be back for part 2. We're going to do a bit of a coaching deep dive, I believe. Looking forward to that one.